Let's clarify a couple of things that we went over real quick when we're doing HVAC calculations in some of the earlier videos. First thing I want to talk about is the ceiling height. I said that we could get that from the architectural plans, and it was kind of difficult on this one. The reason it was because that plan wasn't actually finished. The architect hadn't finished it. So ceiling heights. This is a special building because it has flat ceilings in some areas, and then it has cathedral ceilings, which are ceilings that are pitched. They go up, and so there isn't sometimes there isn't a flat section at all. What we're looking here is the beams, but in reality, the when you're inside the space, the ceiling looks like that. So this building special in that way. Sometimes in the tavern, we have a flat ceiling, very high, but there is some pitched ceiling here. Let's talk about flat ceilings first. Pool equipment has a flat ceiling, and then it has an attic above. Somewhere in there is information on the ceiling height, which is 10 feet. I suspect the kitchen is about the same. If it's not shown, we can measure it. But inside of a project, the dimensions are fairly typical. 9 and 11.5. I probably measured to the wrong part. It depends how they measure. So let's measure to the top part of the sheetrock. If I measure down to the floor, there's 10 feet. So this building has 10-foot ceilings in some areas with attic, and then it has pitch ceilings. What the program is asking us for is average ceiling height. The average ceiling height of a flat roof is the ceiling height. So, for instance, if we're talking about this pool equipment room or the kitchen, then we're talking about a 10-foot average ceiling height. When we talk about pitch roof, we have two things happening. There's the highest roof, or if it isn't flat in the middle, if it goes all the way up to the peak, whatever the dimension is. So you have the ceiling actually starts at 13 foot 10. Let's just call it 14 for the sake of roundness. So the ceiling starts at 14 feet and it pitches all the way up to 19. Let's pretend that it could be to a flat ceiling somewhere up high, or it can be all the way up to the pitch. So you take those two dimensions, find the average. 19 minus 14, that's 5 feet. You add 2.5 to 14, so the average ceiling height is 16.5 feet, which is somewhere around here. So when you're entering ceiling height, you would enter 16.5 feet. 16.5. And that's how you get your average ceiling height. Then we talked about window sizes. The project we were looking at, they actually didn't give us window sizes. This one's pretty complete, so they give us window sizes. Sometimes there would be a legend here that say, let's find out what this window size is first before we start guessing. What we're looking at here is the window plus the shutters plus the trim. What is when the window looks like when you're standing outside looking at it. We don't care about this number. This number just tells us the top of the window is 8 feet above the finished floor. That's the finished floor. And then fancy houses, it's 8 feet, maybe 9 feet, and smaller houses, it's like 6'8", the same height as the door. If you notice, some buildings have a door that's 7 feet, and then it has a light on top, and then that's another foot. So the mounting height is 8 feet, and we probably can see this here. So it's very typical for a building to have the same, and this is called head height. So the head height of all the windows in this building is 8 feet. And so now you know that the ceiling height is going to be more than 8 feet because there's got to be some trim above the window and a little area above the window. So it makes sense that the ceilings are at least 10 feet. We're interested here is not the head height, but the window dimensions themselves. This window is 3066. 3066. Okay, and what they measure to is the part that's actually window. They ignore the shutters, they ignore the 4 inches that are the trim and all that. So let's go over here to this window A. Sometimes they won't give us like a window type. In some cases, you might see a little piece of text that says 3066 by a window, and then so you know that I'm sorry, that's a 3 foot 3 foot wide by 6 foot 6 window. In this case, they actually gave us a legend that says, "Hey, this is window A," and then we have to go see what it is. Also, the window size can be given this way, a diagram, which is neat, or it can give it in a table size. For instance, the door schedule, door number 1 is 3 foot wide by 8 foot wide. So they could do the same to the window schedule. They would give us the width and the height. They also would give us who made it, what it's made of, whatever. When the window sizes they're not as neat as width times height. For instance, window G is a combination of windows. What you could do here is actually take the perimeter of this window and find out the area of it. And I missed right here. I clicked the wrong thing, but we can go back and fix that. And when we get to the last point, we click C for close, and that's our window. Let's just say we'll stretch it, make sure it's closed everywhere, and then we list it. And it's, let's just call it 28.5 feet. Okay, 28.5 square feet. This is window G. So when we go to the block load calculator, we go to window G, and we'll type that number in, 28.5 by 1. Because when you multiply height times width, you get the area. 28.5 times 1 is 28.5. So we kind of cheated a little bit, but the program is not smart enough to know what the window shape is. All it cares about is the area. So that's how we can do that one. We can do the same thing for a round window. We find out that the actual window itself has a radius of 118 inches. So if we list that, we find the area is 7 feet. So we can create window H. And I created that already, 7 feet by 1 feet. And that's how you find out window sizes. Then these two numbers here. I mentioned that we don't change this. And what happens is that's the performance of the window. How well does it keep heat out by transmission, and how well does it shade to keep the radiant heat out. This is transmitted heat, the heat you can feel when you touch an object. But the radiated heat is the heat that gets through the glass, and it doesn't heat up the air around it. It only heats whatever it touches inside. You've been in your car driving in the winter, and even though the window's cold, you still get a suntan because the sun's shining on your arm, but you never noticed because it was cold. So those two numbers is the performance numbers of the window. What happens is when you buy a window, it comes with a sticker. It tells us the U factor is 0.35 and the solar heat gain coefficient is 0.32 for this particular model of window by this particular manufacturer. There's variations between manufacturers, and there's also variations within the same manufacturer. They sell better windows and they sell cheap windows. Chevrolet sells, or GM sells Cadillacs, and then they sell that stupid electric car, right? So what happens is, in the ideal world, you're going to buy the best window, you're going to buy the best materials, and build the best building you could possibly build. But when somebody gives you a quote of how much it's going to cost, you find out that you don't want to spend the extra $1 million just for the luxury of having the nice windows and the nice trim and the nice countertops and the nice latest model of whatever equipment you want in there. So this number gets slashed. Now all of a sudden you don't have the 0.35 and the 0.32 windows, you get something else. So all the time we're chasing this number, and so we have to guess. I am comfortable guessing at 0.3 and 0.3. And the only time you really know is when you go to the job site and you look at the stickers on the window. By that point, it was too late because they already bought the air conditioning system and they've already started installing the air conditioning system. Because that's not something you can buy off the shelf. It takes days, sometimes weeks, to get the equipment in, so they start doing that ahead of time. So that's where that number comes from. And like I said, I'm comfortable with 0.3 and 0.3. Other things that we can fetch from the building or things to know is that windows come in nice round sizes. So if we try to measure this window, we'll know here that it's 2 6 3/4 by 4 3/4, and that's not a nice round number. I know from this architect by looking at the window schedule that is the outer yellow line is what gives us the window size. So I measure the outer yellow line, and I guarantee you it's going to be a nice round number. It's a 3-foot window by 4'6". Right. Other things, of course, the overhang. And one good place, easy place to find the overhang, so you don't have to measure it, is the roof plane. The roof plane on the perimeter, there'll be some dimensions, and that, guess what? That's the overhang. Okay. There's overhang and there's rake. Rake is the overhang on the flat. So this roof coming at us is at some rake of 15 inches. That's the rake, but it's also overhang. Overhang for our purposes is the part of the roof that extends beyond the exterior wall. So the roof here goes 15 inches beyond the exterior wall. Rake. Overhang is the overhang on the pitch side. So right here, this part right here is the overhang. And we know that's a flat face, so we know this part right here is rake. Either way for us is the same. So we come over here and look. It looks like all the rakes are 15 inches, and it looks like all the overhangs. Let me just double check that before I speak out of turn here. Yeah, looks like all the overhangs are 18 inches. No, actually no. Looks like some of the overhangs are 18 inches, and most of the rakes are 15 inches. I see this overhang right here on the porch is 18 inches, not 30 inches. So pay attention to that. But information is given here. The pitch is given here, but not in the way we want it. It's given in rise over run. So for every 12 inches of run is a 9-inch rise. It's a 75% roof, I guess. So instead of trying to do the math, I would just list this here, and there's a number here, angle in the XY plane, 143 from 180. That's like 37-degree roof, right? And so that's where we get all the information that I kind of glossed over when we were punching numbers in for the sake of speed. But now we want to be as accurate as possible. This concludes part 6. I hope this all makes sense and clarifies some of the questions. And